Hey everybody, this is Josh Paul, host of the Small Marketing Teams podcast. I'm really glad that you're checking out the show today. If you're trying to grow your business and you're not a household name or a well-funded startup, you need to do things differently, and that's what we get into on this podcast. If that's you, go ahead and click subscribe on the screen right now so that you'll get notified when we put out new tips, new tutorials, and new advice for small marketing and sales teams. Get away from your desk, get away from your computer, and think, what would that person want to know about your product or service? What are their frequently asked questions that will come up in the buying process? Small Marketing Teams, Episode 8.
You're listening to the Small Marketing Team Show with Josh Paul, the podcast where you'll learn how to achieve big growth without a big budget.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to session number 8 of the Small Marketing Teams Show, the podcast that marketers, salespeople, and business owners rely on to learn how to do more with less. Each week, I'll teach you how you can grow your company without the big budgets that we associate with marketing today. Whether you're the only marketer in your company, and you're also the salesperson, and the CEO, and the person who does payroll, or you have a marketing team big enough to have gratuity added to the check when you go to a sit-down restaurant as a team, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Josh Paul. Let's get started. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Small Marketing Teams podcast. I want to give a shout out first and foremost to all the regular listeners out there, the people who join us each week, who are interacting with us on Facebook. And I want to give a big thank you to the people who are asking questions that we can use on the show to help you and help others in the Small Marketing Teams community. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Small Marketing Teams Show podcast is produced each week for your enjoyment, and the show notes are found at smallmarketingteams.com. You can sign up to get notified when new podcast lessons are released, so come back often and feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed. As I mentioned, this doesn't work without you asking questions, leaving comments, and sharing your experiences and your challenges as we go through this journey together to grow your business. So stay in touch at smallmarketingteams.com, on Twitter at @smallteams, and like the Small Marketing Teams page on Facebook so that we can stay connected and keep this conversation going in between podcast episodes. Today we're going to talk about one of the fundamentals of getting started with content marketing and this new paradigm of how to get found and get customers, as well as take a question from you. But first, I'd like to share something that I was reminded of at a recent event I attended. So my mission at Small Marketing Teams is to show people who want to grow their businesses but aren't sure how, a path to grow their business, because I've lived through it and it's very, very difficult if you don't have a guide along the way. And I want to do this by showing you simple systems that you can implement without a big marketing budget and without a lot of people on your marketing team. And there are plenty of people out there online and that you meet at networking events who offer marketing advice. There's a lot of advice out there. There's a lot of really good advice out there. And a vast majority of the people who are offering advice are doing it from a pure and helpful place. However, I'm very sensitive to what I call trophy advice. In the same way that the term trophy wife or trophy husband refers to somebody who marries somebody so that they can just show off the fact that that is the person that they are married to. Wow, look at them and look at me for marrying that person. Trophy advice comes from people who don't necessarily care what's under the surface, but the fact that they have advice and they can speak it confidently, regardless of how useful it is or how easy it is for you to use that advice to get results, they want the credit. Look at me, I'm going to puff out my chest. I gave you marketing advice. I rock. Look at me. Thank you. Drop the mic. So trophy advice is talking about the ends without the means, by either oversimplifying the means for small companies or starting from a place where most small companies can't start from. And I see examples of this one all the time, where the advice is geared towards larger companies, or the advice really only applies to larger companies. I was listening to a speaker recently at a marketing event, and he was talking about how he doesn't use paid ads at all to drive traffic. And he said, I just don't do it. And he was talking as if that's what other companies should follow. And a couple minutes later, it reveals that he started this company and started building his email list in 2008. And he has 600,000 people on his email list, and that's where all his traffic comes from. That's where all his customers come from for this publishing company. So if you follow his advice and don't use any paid traffic, or say he's not using paid traffic, so I don't need paid traffic, I need to find a different model. His strategy, his approach is coming from a place that most small marketing teams can't come from. They don't have a list of over 500,000 people to leverage. So people who offer trophy advice are either oversimplifying the means to the end, giving advice that starts from a place where most small marketing teams can't start from, or they just leave out the means altogether. So I was recently on the East Coast for several days of meetings, and a friend of mine was hosting a MarTech event, a marketing technology event, in Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. It was a really good event. There's a lot of very, very smart people in the room. And all day long, speakers shared their technology setup, their technology stack, their marketing stack. And people in the audience nodded, and every speaker's stack was more complex and impressive than the last. It was a really great event, but it was the type of room filled with people interested in marketing technology where nobody wanted to admit that they are just not ready for all of that technology yet, or they didn't have the capacity to get results from this type of investment. Until one of the last speakers from a panel of seasoned in-the-trenches marketers said something that I thought was important to share with you today on the Small Marketing Teams podcast. The panel included people from small and mid-sized companies who had a range of experience going back 30 years. And the panelists' advice was this: if you have a small marketing team, if you are a small company, beware of hiring people. Beware of hiring marketing people who have only worked at big companies. If you're a small company, beware of hiring marketing people who have only worked at big companies. You'll hear me say it time and again. One of the most important skills as a small business owner or the leader of a small marketing team is identifying the guidance and success stories and best practices that are not oriented towards companies that don't have a big marketing budget and a big marketing team. And that starts with hiring. It seems a little bit counterintuitive when you see a pedigree like Google, Apple, Fitbit, Washington Post. The list can go on and on. But when you see a brand name on a resume, you say, oh, that's really interesting. You got hired there. Tell me about your experience there. You want to bring some of that success, some of that knowledge, some of that, okay, you have been at a successful company. I know that company. I know that company is successful. Teach me. Bring that here. Repeat that growth here. Oh, you worked at Facebook? Okay, grow my law firm like Facebook grew. You see, that doesn't make sense. A lot of times when people work at big companies, they're part of a larger machine, first of all, so they don't have all the answers. Second of all, the tools at their disposal and the investments that big companies make in marketing technology is usually over the top, is too much, is not what you, the small marketing team or small business owner, needs to grow your business. In fact, if you hire the wrong person, it can set you back many, many years if that person is adamant about bringing in the tools that they used at the company that was 40 times your size or 10 times your size. So the lesson here is simple. When you're hiring, it doesn't mean don't hire anybody who has experience with a well-known brand or a bigger company. The lesson here is during the hiring process, be aware that this is a pitfall that small business owners and mid-sized companies and small marketing teams fall into. Be aware that somebody who comes from a larger company might bring advice and tools and strategies that are starting from a different place than you are at your company. And they will get frustrated and you will get frustrated. And the time that you wanted to spend growing your business because you just hired somebody and you're ready to implement a new strategy, you could be set back several months, if not years, if you need to rip that strategy out and replace those tools that they brought in 6 months later. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to the Small Marketing Teams podcast. You have a lot of choices in where you spend your time, and it means a lot to me that you find value in this show. It is the success and the challenges of your business that drive this podcast. We have some invaluable episodes coming up in the next few weeks, and I don't want you to miss a minute. So please, right now or at the end of this episode, go over to iTunes and click the subscribe button to make sure that you get each episode and the resources that I'm developing for you. Some of the offers are time sensitive, so you can go straight to the place where you can subscribe by visiting smallmarketingteams.com/iTunes. Thanks again for being part of the Small Marketing Teams community. Okay, let's get to the question of the week. This question comes from Dave in Illinois, and Dave writes that he is in a rural area, but his business is growing. His marketing team of one is ready to expand, and so he has been trying to hire for about 4 months, but most of the strongest candidates that he has brought in, has interviewed, and he wants to hire are not near where his business is. The pool of candidates in and around his small city are not the strongest candidates. They're from other parts of the state, and some are even from outside of the state. So Dave asks, is it a wise thing to do to build a marketing team full of remote employees? Well, Dave, that is a great question. Should you build a marketing team with remote employees? And this goes also for those of you listening who have employees who would like to be remote, who are moving or would like to work from home more often. So let's get into it. When I first ran a small marketing team, this was for a small software company, I was the sole remote employee. I was a marketing team of one. I was on the other side of the country, and it was awesome. I got so much done. But there are some ingredients that you need to make this work. So the short answer, Dave, is yes, this is completely fine, but there's certain things that you need in place in order for it to work. So let me get into 4 of them. The first thing you need, Dave, is you. You need strong leadership. As a leader, you need to understand your marketing strategy. You need to be able to articulate it. You need to be able to boil it down into tactics. You need to be able to give some leeway to the people on your team to come to you with ideas and then process those ideas and see where they fit in and provide your team feedback. As a leader, you need to carve out extra time to be there to guide your remote employees. This is hard for a lot of people who used to do it all, who are in the trenches all day long as a marketing team of 1 or 1/2 or 2. They were doing it all. They're in the trenches, and then all of a sudden they have to manage people, and they have to carve out extra time because those people aren't just over the cubicle or in the office down the hall. So it's really important that you make the time, not only leaving time open for them to come to you. As a strong leader of a small marketing team, you need to be proactive in understanding how your team is doing, what they're good at, what they want to be working on, areas that they see that could be improved. And you want to guide them to make sure that they are in alignment with your systems and with your process, and they know where they fit in, they know what their jobs are, they know what they're going to be measured against. And that brings us to number 2, communication and meeting often. What you can't do with a remote marketing team is have a once-a-week check-in with them. I suggest a 15-minute, probably 7 to 15-minute meeting every morning at the same time. We call it a huddle. The entire team gets on the phone and talks about what they're working on today, what they accomplished yesterday, and any roadblocks that they need handled by you. And the most important question that you're going to end each meeting with for the entire group is, all right, what else can I help with? As the leader, as the servant leader, because that's the attitude you need to take to be a successful leader these days. As a servant leader, what else can I help you all with? Is there anything else that I can assist with? Because you've carved out that time, you're going to be there for them. They will know when you ask that question that they can come to you with things that they need help with. So meet often, implement a daily huddle, really, really important. Number 3, you have to have marketing systems in place. These are, how are you going to generate traffic? How are you going to get found? How are you going to generate leads? How are you going to nurture those leads? How are you going to turn those leads into customers? Those can't be one-off things. They can't be every month we're going to figure out, all right, how are we going to get people to our website now? How are we going to get more customers this time? These systems have to be in place so that your team can work them and that they know exactly the steps that they need to take. It's a framework. It's a lot easier mentally for somebody to understand a system than it is to understand instructions. So if they understand the system and it's a repeatable system and that is how your business is going to grow, that goes a long way towards helping remote employees on the marketing team be more autonomous because they don't have to come to you with every little question. They don't have to come to you with every little detail. They know if it fits in the system that they're making the right choice. And the last thing that you need in place that's really important is metrics. Not only the dashboard that you and the executive team follow, but each member of the marketing team needs to understand the entire group's metrics as well as their individual metrics. If you have someone who's working on social media or the top of the funnel or creating content or landing pages or marketing offers or product materials, they need to understand how they are measured, not only personally, but how their function and how their part of the funnel is operating. So make sure those metrics are in place, they're communicated, they're discussed at least weekly at your weekly roundup meeting of the marketing group. So Dave, I'm a big yes on allowing marketing teams to work remotely or hiring marketing teams that are remote, but you need strong leadership. You need to meet often. You have to make sure your systems are in place, and you have to make sure that your metrics are clear and communicated and followed up on often among the entire group. So once everybody is on the same page with what their job is and where it fits into the overall system that's going to grow your company, it actually ends up working better if people are remote. And keep this in mind, if you have people who come to the office every day, give them a chance to work from home once a week or twice a week, because that time is spent in the trenches, cranking, producing. It's not being interrupted with meetings or lunches or anything else. Your marketing team needs to be in the trenches creating, publishing, shipping content. And so, Dave, if you put these 4 elements in place, I think it's going to work out even better for you. Good luck and thanks for your question. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we've talked about on the Small Marketing Teams podcast, the old way of interrupting people to get their attention and flash your product or service in their face is not as effective as newer inbound methods of marketing and attracting visitors by creating helpful, useful, original, insightful content that matters to them. And so when we talk about content, we're talking about the written word, audio content like this podcast, videos, tools, templates. But I've been doing this long enough to know that even if you're a great writer or you're really personable on video, you can get stuck at the stage where you need to figure out what to write about, what to talk about. This is often one of the sticking points for small marketing teams making the transition to this more effective, more cost-effective way of marketing. It's one of the number one questions that I get from the audience when I speak at marketing events. Well, what do I write about? How do I know what to write about? So even if you have an idea and can come up with ideas, a lot of times people need validation that, yeah, that is the right way to think about it. And then you'll get the flip side of it as well, where people say, okay, I got this. And they write content and it's all product focused. It's me, 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 me. It's not helpful, useful, insightful, original content that you're putting out to your market. So because this is one of the most popular questions that I get asked at marketing events, I'm going to give you my 3 approaches that are going to provide a gold mine's worth of content ideas to you and your small marketing team. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it right now. So approach number 1 is the they ask, you answer approach. This is something that I learned many years ago from someone who I look up to in the marketing world. His name is Marcus Sheridan. You can check him out on thesaleslion.com. Great speaker, great thinker on inbound marketing. And so the concept here is think of all of the questions that your customers could ask, have asked, are asking every day, and simply write an answer to them. If your customer wants to know, how much does your service cost? Provide an answer. Sometimes you don't need to provide the specifics, but how would you answer that if somebody is asking you that question to your face? If someone wants to know what's the difference between your product and someone else's product, or if you offer 2 versions, what is the difference between version A and version B? Write about that. If someone wants to know how long does something take to implement, answer that question. If someone wants to know what are the biggest mistakes that people make when using a product like this, or how to maintain a product like this. If you're selling lawnmowers, someone might ask, what kind of maintenance do I need? How often do I need to change the oil in a lawnmower? Do I ever need to change the tires on a lawnmower? How much do lawnmower spark plugs cost? There are an infinite number of questions that your customers are asking and want to know. They may not be asking yet, but they want to know. So the idea is to write a response. It could be 200 words, it could be 2,000 words, depending on how long it takes to explain that answer in a meaningful, helpful way. But the concept is they ask, you answer. So you start by identifying all of the questions that customers may ask. So where to find this content? One of the best places to look are the emails that your sales team gets and sends out from prospects. All day long, prospective customers are asking your sales team questions about your product or service. And what is your sales team doing? They are writing answers back to those prospects. So set up a system to either get a hold of those questions or get a hold of the questions and answers that your sales team is sending back to those prospective customers. A lot of CRM systems and customer databases will log the emails coming from salespeople. So as a marketer, you can get access to that and then troll those interactions for questions and answers. So the answers could actually save you time in creating that content and give you a basic outline that you could turn into a larger piece of content. Along those same lines, your existing customers are asking your support team questions all day long. So look in your support logs, look in your ticketing system. What are people asking? What are people answering? And then the last approach in the they ask, you answer model is to go back to your personas. Think of personas as a composite generalization of your target audience. So your company could have 2 or 3 or 5 target personas. These are your target buyers. And so you want to go back to your personas, go into a quiet room, and then think. This sounds kind of hokey, but it's true. Go into the conference room, close the door, get away from your desk, get away from your computer, and think, what would that person want to know about your product or service? What are their frequently asked questions that will come up in the buying process? And just do a brain dump, do a brainstorming session, get them all out of your head, put them on a piece of paper, put them on the whiteboard, everything that somebody could possibly ask. How many colors does this come in? You could ask, is there a payment plan available? So you think about pricing, you think about process, you think about all the features of your product. Those are all things that people could ask during the sales process. Also, don't forget to back it up a little. So it's not just during the buying process that people might have questions. It's during the researching process. Is this right for me? When is it not right for me? When is this product or service not a good fit for me or my company? So between looking at your sales team's interactions, your support tickets, and then going back to your personas and getting inside those personas' heads and looking at your product and saying, all right, what questions would I have if I were this person? And researching and shopping for a product or service like mine. That alone should yield about a year's worth of content right there. So that's number 1. They ask, you answer. The second approach that I take is called the Oreo method. And the reason is, if you look at an Oreo, there's good stuff on the outside and the chocolate cookie cracker thing, but the cream is in the middle, and that is the best part. And the cream, in this example, is your product. And we're going to let people discover the product on their own. So we're going to create topics for your content on either side of the product without talking about the product itself. So there's 2 parts of this. The first is identifying your target market and your target audiences and your target buyers' problems and goals. So what do they want to accomplish? What do they ultimately want to accomplish? So you're going to talk about that. That's the hook. I'm going to show you how you can lose 10 pounds in 30 days. So you're really talking very clearly about the outcome, about the problem that they're trying to solve, or about the goal that they're trying to achieve. So start with, what do they want to do? What do they want to accomplish? And then the second part is the other side of the Oreo. You back it up even further and you talk about, okay, here's how you do it. If I want to lose 10 pounds in 30 days, that's what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it without talking about my product or service. I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to tell you what to look for. I'm going to tell you how to avoid pitfalls and setbacks, how to reduce risk, how to avoid mistakes that other people have made. I'm going to give you the step-by-step instructions on how to accomplish that goal or how to solve that problem. But I'm not going to talk about my product. You're going to go right up to the line of talking about your product, but you're not going to mention your product. You can even mention your product category. Let's say in this weight loss example, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 30 days. I'm going to show you how to do it and the best way to do it and these step-by-step instructions. And here's all the science that shows you that high-intensity interval training is the way to do it. And I'm going to back it up, but I'm not going to mention my high-intensity interval training program. I'm going to tell you there are programs out there, the science is behind it, and I'm going to make the case that this is how you do it. And it leads towards a natural conclusion on the part of your readers or the part of your listeners or the part of your watchers that your product can fulfill that goal. It positions you as an expert, lets people know you know your stuff, and your product or service must be able to accomplish this because you're talking about it and you know this so well and it's making so much sense to me. The natural conclusion of your readers is this product or service is the right one for me to accomplish that goal that was talked about at the beginning. Once you get somebody to buy into that evidence that you've provided and that paradigm shift, here's the goal, and yeah, here are the logical steps towards achieving that goal, that makes a lot of sense to them. It's really easy for you to introduce your product and say, all right, so this process makes sense to you to accomplish this goal? This process makes sense to lose 10 pounds in 30 days? Now that I've got you to buy into that, let me tell you about this product I have, or this program I have, that makes everything I talked about in the step-by-step process, or in the what to watch out for points, or to what to look for in a good high-intensity training program. Now that you understand that and you get that, I've built a program or a product or service built around those points that makes that step-by-step process easier. If you think that process makes sense, I've got a way to accomplish that process in half the time, and that's my product or service. That's when you get to the creamy filling in the middle. That's the sweet spot, but it starts with talking about the layers on the outside. What do they want to do? What do they want to accomplish? What is that goal? And then here's what to look for. Here's how to do it without mentioning your product. And then when you do introduce your product, it's wrapped really, really nicely around the goal. They assume that you can already meet the goal, which you should be able to with your product or service. And then the process or the steps or the ways to avoid mistakes, the way to take the risk out of this is already built in, and your product or service just helps fulfill that process. So that's the Oreo method. We talked about the they ask, you answer. We talked about the Oreo method. And my third recommendation for what to write about and how to generate meaningful topics, so you're not just writing for writing's sake, is to generate topics based on your company's target search engine keywords. That's not to say that you're going to rank for every one of those keywords right away, but I'm going to give you some guidance right here on how to generate meaningful keywords. And then you're going to have to work through your SEO tools or some of the free services out there to prioritize these keywords. So as you're brainstorming, here are the different categories of keywords to think about. Start with broad, general topics. If you sell software to gyms and fitness facilities that helps them track members and communicate with members and keep members and track sales and all that, a broad term might be gym membership management or fitness facility management or wellness management. The next level down is results. You want to build keywords around what your product or service helps people accomplish. And those would be keyword phrases like increasing gym member retention or upselling gym memberships. The next level you want to talk about is how you accomplish something. And this would include things like email communication to gym members or gym membership websites. We're going to keep bringing it down. You'll notice this is getting narrower and narrower. This is your product level. I label it as narrow because it's not all product specific, but these are the features of your product or the projects of your service. And these are your product category and specific product features. So continuing with our example, the narrow product keywords would be gym management software or fitness member management software. That's the category. If you're selling a service and not a product, then you can use projects. If you're a general contractor, your narrow category can be window replacement or pool remodeling. Those are your product categories. And there's a lot of different iterations of product categories. So when you're looking at brainstorming content around your keywords, you have your broad topics, you have your result or outcome-oriented keywords, you have your how-to keyword phrases, and then you have your narrow product or feature or project-related keywords. Those 4 categories will give you more than enough content ideas and more than enough topics to write about, because there's a lot of free tools out there, and I'll link some in the show notes, where you can plug in your keywords and it'll produce content ideas for you. But it all starts with identifying those keywords that you can write about. You want to write about the how-tos for each of those. You want to write about the pitfalls of each of those and how to avoid mistakes. You want to write about trends in each of those categories. And there's many, many more angles you can take and ways to mind map around those keywords to generate topics. But start with those topic generators that are all based around your keywords. Next time you think, well, I don't know what to write about, go back to these 3 approaches. They ask, you answer, the Oreo approach, and then your business's specific keywords. And you will have years worth of topics. And just because you come up with the first thing to write about, don't stop there. You want to come up with as many topics as you can in one sitting. You'll be in the right mindset, and you can literally we time box this. Time boxing is one of the key concepts for small marketing teams, where you set a specific time and you do as much as you can in that time. So we'll say, all right, let's have a 30-minute meeting. Let's see if we can come up with 100 topics and articles to write about, 100 headlines during that meeting. And a lot of times we do it because everybody is into it and ideas are flowing from one to the other. We're building on each other's ideas. And so you'll have no problem generating topics. And the reason you want to do more than one at once or more than a handful at once is because writing can be difficult. Sometimes if you're not a professional writer, you need to be in the mood to produce that kind of content. So giving yourself a few dozen to choose from, one topic or one headline may resonate with you more one day than another topic. So you want to make sure that you give yourself options so you're in the best frame of mind to produce that content or to have someone on your small marketing team produce that article. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up episode 8. Thank you for joining me today. This is a lot of fun to bring this podcast to you each week. If you like the advice that you hear on this podcast, please leave a rating and review on iTunes. I would love it. Please tell your friends about the Small Marketing Teams podcast. If you look within your immediate network, I bet you can find 3 or 4 people who run small companies or who are in charge of small marketing teams that don't know that there's advice out there designed specifically for people without big marketing teams and big marketing budgets. Reach out to me on the Small Marketing Teams Facebook page, @smallteams on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. And you can sign up at smallmarketingteams.com to get free lessons and notifications when the next Small Marketing Teams podcast episode is released. I really appreciate hearing from everyone in the Small Marketing Teams community. Have a great week, and thanks for downloading.